Thanks for joining us for some leadership training on goal setting, coaching, and feedback. We're going to provide some tips and best practices for working collaboratively with your employees to establish meaningful goals, and also some tips and tools for providing coaching and feedback that you can use with your employees throughout the performance cycle. So here's a snapshot of our new performance framework that was shared with you recently. Goal setting is the first step in the annual review process, but it's not a one and done exercise. Goals have to be revisited and adjusted as business needs change, so it's important that you and your leader and your employees are always on the same page as it relates to goals and expectations. A 35-year study on goal setting and performance verified that what we all know instinctively, goals improve performance, and bigger goals produce bigger results, up to 40% more than normal. And too many goals start to work against us, so fewer are often better. Our performance framework starts with well-defined goals that align with our corporate priorities and ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction. Our corporate priorities determine our business unit or department goals, and those are in turn cascaded down to create the team leader and individual goals. With your direction, employees should provide a draft of their performance or business goals and include a minimum of one professional development goal. Developing proficient skills is essential for employee engagement and retention, as well as for continuous improvement and corporate success. And it's the leader's role to ensure that those are the right goals and that they align with the corporate priorities. An average of 5 to 7 goals is highly recommended. Fewer goals may be appropriate, and 10 would be the absolute max. And as we just saw on the previous slide, there's strong evidence that fewer goals have a more positive impact on overall performance than more goals, and too many goals are counterproductive. For that reason, our performance review document will accommodate a maximum of 10 goals. So we would like every leader to work with their employees to ensure that they have solid goals in place as quickly as possible. There's a few different ways to source goals, including looking at past goals and past feedback, as well as current organizational goals and development needs. To be well-defined and impactful, goals need to be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Again, goal setting is a collaborative process between employees and their managers, and we'll spend some time looking at the SMART method for setting goals. Every manager has their own leadership style, but when it comes to goal achievement, leaders should be supportive while empowering employees to achieve their goals or to fall short. Leaders should review their goals during their one-on-one meetings with employees, adjust them as needed based on corporate or team priorities, and resist the temptation to micromanage. And while measurement is important, make sure the process isn't overly complicated to the point where tracking and assessing is very time-consuming. Communication in the form of regular coaching and feedback is just as important as metrics. We have a brief video that addresses the process and the importance of setting SMART goals.
Hi, I'm Edward Musio, CEO of Group Harmonics, and I'm going to tell you how to set SMART goals for the people you work with. There's a game we can play called Bring Me a Rock. Here's how it goes. I say to you, bring me a rock. You come back with a rock. I say to you, no, I wanted a smaller rock. You come back with a smaller rock. I say to you, no, I wanted a different color rock. You come back with a different color rock. Now we can go on like this forever, and Bring Me a Rock starts out funny and quickly becomes frustrating. When you're talking about asking somebody to do something at work, playing Bring Me a Rock is not just frustrating, it's demoralizing and it wastes time and resources. The way to avoid that is by an old trick called setting SMART goals. S-M-A-R-T. SMART goals means when you ask someone to do something, your request follows 5 criteria. First, what you want to ask for should be specific. I need to hone my request to you down to a fine point of what I want. I shouldn't just say, go find out what's going on in sales. Maybe I should say, there's been a 10% decrease in sales figures over the last 6 months. Find me some root causes, please. It's a more specific, more narrow request. Second, what I ask you for should be measurable. That means there's a clear measuring stick, a criteria that we can use to determine what success looks like and when you got there. Do I want you to find me 3 root causes for the sales decline? Do I want you to publish a report in some forum? Do I want you to implement something and get the sales figures back up by a few percent? Whatever the criteria is, it needs to be clear, and we need to agree how we'll know when you got there. A stands for attainable. Now, I can ask you to climb Mount Everest this weekend. You can know what I want and not be able to do it. I can ask you to produce a 400% increase in company revenue, and you can know what I want and not be able to do it. What I ask you for has to be something you can reasonably produce. If I don't know what's reasonable, I need to work with you to agree on what is a reasonable goal. My request should also be relevant. And this means that it ties into and answers the question of, how does this relate to the other work you're doing? For example, if you're a person that works in IT, supporting computers, and I'm sending you off to look into sales figures, that might not be a very relevant request unless I can explain why you're the right person to do it. On the other hand, if you work in sales, it's much better. Somehow I should be able to answer the question, how does this relate to your work and the work of your organization or group? Finally, my request for you should be time-based or time-bound. And this just means that I'm going to put some kind of a clock or a calendar or something on my request to you so that you know when it's due. That way we're clear on when I expect it. So that's it. When I ask you to do something for me, I should make sure that my request is specific. I ask you for exactly what I want. Measurable, we agree on what success looks like. Attainable, it's something you can do. Relevant, it's something that relates to the other work you're doing. And time-based, you know when it's due. The next time you're going to ask someone to do something for you at work, whether you're setting a major goal or just asking someone for a favor, take a few minutes and figure out the SMART criteria for your request in advance. Those few minutes you take could save you and the person you're working with a lot of time, energy, and frustration.
Okay, as we just saw, SMART goals that don't meet all of the criteria you see here can lose effectiveness and waste time and resources, not to mention create confusion or even frustration. One area that leaders often say is challenging for them is to connect a goal with a quantifiable measurement. Most goals have easily identifiable numeric targets such as quality, quantity, cost, or time. But when they don't, qualitative measurement is needed, such as feedback or indirect indicators that are associated with expected outcomes. As an example, if improved customer satisfaction is a goal, but you don't have a customer satisfaction survey, what indirect indicators or feedback would you use to determine success? Maybe kudos from coworkers, thank you notes from merchants, call audits, and other data that you can get from observation. And if you do rely on qualitative data, just be sure to use it consistently for the entire peer group. We'll provide you with several resources to help you construct SMART goals, as well as some examples of SMART goals such as the 2 that you see here. Each of these goals have an appropriate degree of specificity, which only you and the employee can ultimately determine. They're both measurable in the sense that it should be easy for the manager and the employee to know if the tasks meet the requirements. Both goals also appear to be reasonably attainable. And as far as I can tell, both goals are relevant to the department's mission and to the employee's general job responsibilities. And both are time-bound, each with a deadline for completion. Here's some questions you can use as thought starters if you get stuck in the goal-setting process. As mentioned earlier, every employee will need a minimum of 1 professional development goal. Examples of business-related or performance goal questions might be, what areas would you like to focus on next in your current role? Or what projects are outstanding that you would like to tackle next? Examples of development-related questions might be, what is one guiding behavior that you would like to change or develop? Or what is holding you back that you could tackle? And by the way, a large part of development can and should happen on the job. On-the-job training can be a tremendous asset to leaders when they get creative and find unique ways to help expand an employee's knowledge, skills, and experience. Development is an investment in our employees and in our company, and that's why every employee needs a minimum of one professional development goal. And whenever possible, development should be tied to one of our guiding behaviors. A long-term research project commissioned by Middlesex University found that from a sample of 4,300 employees, about three-quarters of them felt that they weren't achieving their full potential at work, in large part due to lack of development opportunities. Remember the 35-year study we referenced a few minutes ago that said employees are capable of delivering up to 40% more than what they would typically when they set bigger goals? Well, development is one of the primary things that enable that type of performance. And in terms of overall talent development, a recent LinkedIn survey of 2,000 business leaders found that over half ranked soft skills above hard skills in terms of importance. The top four soft skills they cited are leadership, communication, collaboration, and time management. And all of those, except for time management, are part of our guiding behaviors, and they do represent key development opportunities for many employees. And for those who do need improvement in those areas, quite often it's simply a matter of learning how to execute, not that they don't understand the concepts themselves. And that's where coaching and feedback can be very helpful. Development goals should build on current strengths, address gaps that may prevent them from being successful in their current role, and should be prioritized based on the most pressing business needs, which we know can change. The SMART Goals template will help employees specify the desired outcomes for any development goal and what they'll need to do to achieve it. And as a leader, be sure to provide ongoing coaching and feedback as you would with any of their business or performance goals. In addition to the SMART Goals template, we'll provide you with a form that employees can use to start documenting development needs tied to one or more of our guiding behaviors, as well as the activities designed to close those gaps. There are three basic types or forms of development tools, and each type has a different impact on development. There are literally unlimited development resources at a company of our size, and the only real limitation to available resources is how imaginative we are. The vast majority of tools fall into the experiential category, and they're the most effective when trying to get a broader understanding of processes within a team or across the organization, or for even gaining more exposure to other work groups across the organization. Educational tools such as this training, lunch and learns, or even bite-sized training provided at leadership meetings are all examples of what's possible. Think about processes or best practices that you or your employees could provide training on that might benefit the rest of the organization. Courses taken online or at a school or at a special conference generally comprise only about 10% of the development for most employees, but they're effective at introducing new competencies for an employee or even to the organization as a whole. Feedback and relationship tools such as 360 interviews to obtain feedback help employees gain more insight into how they're perceived by others and create more self-awareness that opens the mind to self-improvement. Mentoring is a proven method of helping an employee with their career progression by allowing an employee to take advantage of a leader's vast knowledge of the business, as well as how to develop effective relationships and how to successfully navigate roadblocks. Human resources can provide resources to any leaders or employees interested in a mentoring relationship. Here's some of the more common on-the-job development tools generally used to gain broader process knowledge or prepare for a role with increased responsibilities or perhaps for building leadership skills. As you can see, most of these are a form of experiential development. On-the-job development may include a special project such as an assignment outside of the scope of the day-to-day job for one of your employees, such as asking them to lead the next team meeting. It may also be a stretch assignment with tighter timelines or more challenging objectives. Training newer employees, mentoring, and coaching are all great development tools, especially for those looking to assume a leadership role. And job shadowing is a good way for more experienced employees to gain additional exposure to specific tasks, discussions, and decisions in other areas of the company. Some examples of formal development tools that fall in the education bucket include external classroom training offered by vendors, internal classroom training conducted by any internal department, e-learning, college courses, and conferences. And again, formal training generally comprises only about 10% of an employee's development, with on-the-job development tools comprising the vast majority. Coaching and feedback are continuous processes as indicated in the center of the performance framework diagram that you see here. And they include all the things that you provide to your employees informally every day. Coaching and feedback are like the glue that holds the performance framework together. So we're going to spend the next several minutes talking about how you can maximize the effectiveness of your efforts in those areas. And by the way, a recent study conducted by the talent management and advisory arm of Deloitte showed that organizations with senior leaders who coach effectively and frequently will on average improve their business results by 21% as compared to those who never coach. That's a remarkable lift for any organization under any circumstances. There's plenty of evidence that a culture of coaching and feedback is critical to corporate success. But what exactly is coaching? What is a coach? Webster's dictionary says a coach is simply someone who instructs or trains, and coaching, therefore, is to instruct or train. But these quotes from some of the world's best-known coaches help provide a better understanding of the true role of coaches. Coach Pete said, "It's about helping people to unlock their potential." In the second quote listed here, an unknown author said that coaching is product development with you as the product. And I think that another way to look at it is that a culture of coaching and feedback is needed for continuous improvement, which is what every organization needs to strive towards. As important as coaching is to an organization, the HR Research Institute found that most employees don't think leaders are very good at it. This survey also gathered employee feedback on their leaders' ability to prevent problems, conduct difficult conversations, and manage conflict, and the feedback was pretty much the same. Coaching and feedback, as well as conflict resolution, are interrelated, and quite often they're interdependent, and in many cases, they're one and the same. They're synonymous. At the foundation of successful coaching is an environment where employees are comfortable taking an honest, in-depth look at themselves and are better able to hone their sense of self-awareness. For most people, that kind of self-analysis is very difficult. So it's important that they feel safe with their coach, which is you, their manager. It's about the ability to create trust, which is perhaps the most important leadership skill in today's workplace, because real change can only happen in this type of environment. Perhaps the most famous quote from leadership guru and author Ken Blanchard is that feedback is the breakfast of champions. We need feedback from our leaders, our employees need it from us, and we also need it from our employees. When was the last time that you asked your employees how you were doing or what you can do to better support them? A culture of feedback means that all of us are open to constructive feedback, continuous improvement, and performance excellence. Think about it. If we didn't value user experience or the QA process, our products would be mediocre. Our software developers wouldn't have a sense of satisfaction, and we'd probably lose merchants. If we don't ask for or encourage feedback or positively reinforce our accomplishments, we don't get better. The Spot On Performance Framework is designed to help promote a culture with robust coaching and feedback. Here's another quote about the importance of having a culture of coaching and feedback from the infamous Jack Welch, who many of you know is the former CEO of General Electric. He's also an author, and he's the founder of the Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University. He attributes his success in part to coaching and feedback. Statistically, strong coaching cultures are more than 2 times more likely to be found in high-performing organizations than in lower-performing organizations. And according to leadership training and research firm Leadership IQ, while strong coaching cultures help create high-performing organizations, employees don't think that their performance is positively impacted by the feedback that they're getting from their manager. This study is a leading indicator that organizations need to focus much more attention on feedback quality. The same survey showed that there's a strong correlation between leader feedback and employee engagement, as indicated by their willingness to recommend their company as a great place to work. And as you can see here, employees who said that leader feedback was always helpful were 8 times more likely to recommend their company than employees who said feedback from their leader never helped them improve their performance. I think we can assume that this statistic also includes an absence of feedback altogether. Further, a study by Forbes showed that there's a strong correlation between honest feedback and employee engagement. So the moral of that story is honesty builds trust, and trust helps build strong teams. So feedback needs to be sincere, empathetic, and direct. And finally, a survey by Harvard Business Review showed that the ability to listen drives an employee's perception of the quality of your feedback. Effective coaching and feedback requires two-way communication, and the ability to listen to understand is key. That's why we've assembled several resources on effective listening. Coaching and feedback are not the same. They're both critically important to organizational performance, but they're used differently. Think of coaching as future-focused, achieving a different result from the norm, helping the employee to see new possibilities and landing on new solutions. Feedback, on the other hand, is more about the here and now. This is what I witnessed, and this is what you need to change as it relates to your behaviors or tactics. Here are several more contrasts between coaching and feedback, but the key takeaway is that leaders need to use both at different times, and sometimes within the same conversation. An employee has to be open to coaching, so building trust is a key prerequisite. Feedback, on the other hand, isn't as discretionary because it's required to ensure employees understand expectations around goals and guiding behaviors. I want to dispel some common myths about coaching. First, you don't need to do it for a living. And in fact, you don't even have to be an expert on the subject. And I would go as far as saying that you don't even know to know more about it than the person you're coaching. Because quite often, successful coaching has more to do with helping the employee increase their focus and awareness of the gap between what they think they're doing and what they're actually doing. Think of it as a reality check. Myth number 2, coaching takes too long, so why not just tell the employee what to do and get it over with? Well, the problem with that thinking is that telling employees what to do or giving them advice generally results in one of 4 possible outcomes, and only one of them is positive, as you can see from this slide. But even then, you're creating a situation where the employee will continuously rely on you for help instead of their own resourcefulness. Coaching isn't advising. It's helping the employee to think for themselves and then to develop solutions that they understand and take ownership for. A third myth is that only struggling employees need coaching. As stated earlier, coaching is for anyone who desires continuous improvement, and hopefully that's the vast majority of us. And finally, coaching isn't about telling. It's about leading, in the truest sense, because it helps employees open their minds to more possibilities. And effective coaches do that in a way that makes employees feel valued, move towards their goals, align with organizational needs, and get results. This diagram depicts a commonly used interactive coaching model that works just as well if you're providing feedback. Coaching and feedback usually aren't isolated events, but rather part of a process that begins after observing certain behavior, and it may require several interactions. Just like our performance framework, the process requires two-way communication in order to establish trust and create positive change. This model identifies several best practices, such as reducing the employee's anxiety at the onset of the meeting with a friendly greeting and starting the conversation by letting them know that you're committed to helping them be successful in their role. In a couple slides, I'll share the STAR AR feedback tool that you can use to provide feedback in a structured manner in just about any type of situation. And you need to solicit a response to that feedback, always being sure to listen with empathy and listen to understand. Feedback and coaching is most effective when you collaboratively reach a solution and when the employee agrees that a change is needed. And always demonstrate your ongoing support and commitment to helping the employee achieve that solution, and then follow up to a successful conclusion. If you think about it, there's really only two types of feedback. One is to provide positive reinforcement of performance and those guiding behaviors that you want to see continue. And the other is developmental or constructive feedback, which is focused on what the employee needs to improve upon. Both types of feedback should be done in a timely manner in order to maximize effectiveness by capitalizing on those coachable moments. Earlier, we said that most employees surveyed don't think their manager or leaders in general are very good at providing feedback, or that their performance is generally improved by the feedback that they get from their manager. That's because to improve performance, leaders need to provide specific feedback around potential causes and solutions, and it has to be based on specific goals, SMART goals. Looking at this excerpt from the Journal of Applied Psychology, general feedback provided around general goals is hard to interpret and even harder to apply, whereas specific feedback applied to specific goals more easily impacts future performance. As I said, the STAR Stay AR feedback tool is a great way to organize your feedback to help ensure that it's specific and focused on a positive outcome. STAR, used for praising performance, stands for situation, task, action, and results. When you add the AR to it, it's a great tool for providing feedback for improving performance. The AR stands for alternative action and enhanced result. Let's look at some examples. Here, the leader is praising performance. He said, "When you were speaking to the planning committee last week, you spoke clearly and loudly enough. You were brief, organized, and to the point. The planning committee understood the message." The feedback here was very straightforward. It was brief and to the point. The leader cited the situation or task. He cited the action the employee took, and he cited the result of that action. So this is the STAR portion of the tool. And in this example, the leader is providing feedback for improving performance using the STAR AR version of the tool. The first part of the feedback follows the STAR process and then adds the alternative action and enhanced result, as you can see highlighted here. The leader said, "Yesterday was the deadline for the operations report. You submitted the report today, a day late. As a result, our department did not meet its deadline." And then the AR portion of the feedback. "You need to inform me as soon as possible if you foresee missing a deadline so we can plan alternate actions. By doing this, we will continue to meet expectations." So here's some tips to improve your coaching effectiveness. Before you begin a coaching conversation with an employee, it's important to have a strategy, including a clear vision and game plan focused on a desired result. For change to take hold, the employee has to understand the why of the request and how it's connected to their individual accountabilities before they can assign a certain level of importance to the task and really commit to it. Ask the employee to isolate those skills that they feel need improvement. Look at the employee's natural propensities, what they're naturally good at, and what parts of the job they enjoy the most. Mold communication style and content to that particular employee to ensure maximum effectiveness. Celebrating accomplishments is a strong form of positive reinforcement, so try to provide 4 times more positive reinforcement than developmental feedback so as not to squash the employee's confidence. Coaching should be something that you do all the time with specificity and structure, using the STAR AR tool, and it should be done timely in order to capitalize on those coachable moments. When you meet with the employee, start the discussion by telling them why you wanted to meet with them. When the feedback is concerning behavior, provide as much detail as possible and explain why the behavior is significant. In other words, the consequences of that behavior or lack thereof. Reinforce the employee's efforts and acknowledge any progress that they've made. Always provide constructive or developmental feedback in private and be careful to protect their self-esteem. Check for understanding and provide clarity. And use the STAR AR tool to help ensure that all detail is captured and structured in a way that maximizes the effectiveness of your feedback. A final tip. Effective coaching can only take place in the context of a dialogue where the employee is a full participant. Again, employees have to invite coaching, maybe not literally, but they have to want it in order for it to be effective. Can you see how the results of the conversation will be limited with the closed-ended questions that you see here? Coaching helps employees become problem solvers, and it's the goal of every leader to have a team of problem solvers. That concludes the session on goal setting, coaching, and feedback, and we hope that you have a better understanding of their importance to Spot On. Please feel free to reach out to Human Resources with any questions. Thank you.